Also, sometimes when we recite the Holy Quran, there is some verse in which we have to do sajda. Why is this?
Yes. In fact, this question is controversial. Particularly, I have challenged the authenticity of this word sajda written everywhere. Some person chose to write it, and all the people following it blindly. So only 2 years ago or so, I made a full investigation into who had suggested that we should physically prostrate while the Quran was being read here and there and there and there. To my amazement, I found that this was not decided by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was the authority for such things, nor was it decided by the caliphs. It was decided by some scholars later on. So after having made thorough investigations, I came across some traditions which were older, which indicated that at some place Rasulullah sallam had certainly prostrated. So the origin is not entirely baseless. So the scholars later on may have increased the number of such places, but altogether you can't say that they were without foundation. It was the invention or innovation of somebody later on. So I investigated further and discovered that it was very occasional that you find traditions mention Rasulullah sallam to have prostrated somewhere. But at the same places, later on, when some Qari was reciting those verses where he had prostrated, he did not. So the scholars of traditions were confused about why. So different people have drawn different conclusions from this. Personally, I believe that in certain places where the spirit of the reader of the Quran is especially moved, there your spirit likes to prostrate, and that is the real sajda. So at such moments, maybe there is a place or two where you are compelled from within, you are motivated from within to prostrate. So I believe that even if there is no sajda mentioned on the side of the Quran, you may do it. And Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had prostrated at such occasions, also considering the situations. He was reciting not by reading something. So he could prostrate any time and easily. But when you extend this overmuch, you may find yourself in great difficulty while you are reading the Quran and sajda comes. We have to go down and say sajda. And if you are passing through a mosque and some qari is reciting the Quran and the point sajda comes, would you prostrate in the street? So there are many practical difficulties. Keeping in view those difficulties, the traditions, everything, I've come to the conclusion that occasionally, to keep the form alive, we should do sajda, particularly when we are at our home and when there is the floor is clean and you can say sajda there. And occasionally also in congregation, the sajda is being said, and because it's already in prayer and you are in the mosque, so when such verses are recited, this is a practice with Ahmadis to prostrate in whatever position you are. and re-continue your prayer from where you left. For instance, during the tilawat of a qari, of an imam, if a point comes where it is established that the sajda comes, while people have not gone into that question, I have found it myself that the places mentioned in the Quran are too numerous. The evidence you have is only about a few. So I believe that when such verses are read, the imam should prostrate and all should prostrate along. But it does not mean that you are passing through a street and you hear somebody say, repeat the verse, recite the verse, and you prostrate there and then. So it's a very controversial matter, as I said in the beginning. But some of it has to be followed strictly. I mean, the central practice of prostrating at some places is essential.